Totally amazing.
Brian was torn between not liking Leeds and also being envious of them too, I think. There was a lot about Leeds. He would have liked a lot about Leeds. He'd have liked to have emulated.
Roker Park, December 26, 1963, and the playing career of Brian Clough, the fastest goal scorer in British football, is virtually over. This week we welcome Brian Clough to Leeds in his new job, manager of Leeds United. So how will his outspoken personality fit in with Leeds, and what can he do for a team that's done just about everything?
It was ridiculous for Leeds to appoint him, and it gave him a chance to try and destroy the edifice which he resented most. And that was bizarre.
I think they've been champions, and they've not been good champions in the sense of wearing the crown remarkably well. I think they could have been a little bit more loved. I'm going to bring a bit of warmth and a little bit more honesty and a little bit more of me into the setup, I hope.
He came in, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. He sat us down, and he just turned around and he said, "You see, you lot, I played under Revie. See all the caps and the medals that you won? You should find a dustbin and chuck them in there, because you cheated for those."
I had great fears of that bloody suit of his in the office when I walked in. You know, the one he's had 13 years. I thought, if that's there, that's going straight in the bin, because not only will it be old, it'll smell, you know. If you have a suit for 13 years.
Brian's been on record saying that, you know, if I'd have been a horse, he'd have shot me. He's probably quite right at the time, because I had a lot of injuries. But he could have done that a bit better as well, you know. I don't think that endeared him to a few of the players, and especially somebody like himself who had to pack the game in early through injury, you know. I think he might have forgotten about that happened to him.
No surprise then that new signings soon began to arrive, led by Duncan McKenzie, a young flamboyant striker with an excellent line in mimicry.
Young man, Brian Clough here. Now don't mess me about, son, are you going to Derby or do you want to come to me at Leeds? And I just remember saying, I'd love the opportunity of speaking to you, Mr. Clough. And he said, good lad, pack your bags. See you at the Victoria Hotel, Sheffield, half an hour. Don't be late.
Long-time Clough favourites John McGovern and John O'Hare received similar calls.
I'd worked for Clough at Hartlepool and then at Derby County before I went to Leeds. Knew his style was abrasive. Knew at times that certain players wouldn't like that style of management, but I'd learned to take out the good points of it and the constructive football points that he used to make, and I know that he did get the maximum from most players that would throw the lot in with him.
Sid Owen was a coach at the time, and he was stood at the back of the room, 25 yards away, and Brian Clough would make a statement, and you would hear, "Aye, aye, 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 what a load of rubbish. Have you ever heard such rubbish in all your life?" And I mean, I'm sat at the front. I mean, I thought, well, he's not deaf. I mean, he's listening to this.
It was obvious from the way the side were playing that they weren't certainly living up to their reputations as players. Through the difficulty of either trying to understand how the manager wanted them to play, or more to the point, I think they wouldn't really listen to him and didn't want him at the club.
Clough's first game in charge was a 1-1 draw with Liverpool in the least charitable Charity Shield ever played, a mere prelude to the club's worst league start for 20 years. In 6 games under Clough, they managed just 1 win.
Players had been speaking with the directors, 1 or 2 of them saying he doesn't know how to manage, he can't do the job, which I found totally amazing. He's won the league championship at Derby, but the directors then became involved, and eventually they said, well, we'll call the manager in. So that it could be, instead of a private meeting between players and directors, there could be an open meeting. So Brian Clough was called in. The directors then asked the players and said, well, you know, the manager's here now, any criticism, can you throw it at the manager? You know, and 1 or 2 players said, well, we don't think you know what you're doing. To be fair to Clough, I thought he would just absolutely go berserk when people are criticising him. But he didn't. He just said, well, perhaps I've been a bit too forthright. He says, and if we wipe the slate clean, perhaps we could start anew with the relationship. But I knew it had gone too far.
We're leaving, parting company in a very friendly way.
Would you agree with that, Brian? I mean, how can you feel friendly about being sacked, or at least having your contract terminated?
I'm feeling very friendly towards Mr. Cousins.
I was only on £15,000 a year when I left Leeds United, and you'd think that Brian Clough comes in 44 days and took about 45,000 tax-free money away from Leeds United.
There's been this hatred between Revie and Clough for so long, and it was a strange move when you think Don Revie recommended Johnny Giles be given the job.
I can see clearly now. Within hours of his sacking, Brian Clough was sitting in a television studio alongside Don Revie.
When you walked in, tell me this, when you walked in, did you have a meeting the first day with him?
No,
Why?
because I didn't think it was necessary to have a meeting the very first day.
So you were taking over as manager of a new club,
Yes?
and you don't call all your players and your coaching staff and your office staff together
No.
and introduce yourself and meet them and tell them exactly what you feel and what you want to try and do.
Don, the first day I walked in, I came back from holiday and I did 2 hours training with them.
Cloughie had said, whose is this desk? And she said, well, it's yours, Mr. Clough. Whose was this desk? I said, well, it was Mr. Revie's. And he said, I want it burnt.
When you've taken over a job of a man that's been there 10, 15 years, and he's been regarded as the kingpin, as the father figure, as the man that made everything tick, then within 7 weeks, it is impossible, utterly impossible, to replace that type of thing.
I think he tried to change things too quickly at a club. I think he thought he could come in and get the broom out and everything that Don Revie had achieved in the past 12, 14 years would disappear. And it wasn't going to be like that.
Next week for Leeds, a painful springtime in Paris.
What should have been the best moment of all turned out to be the worst.
But the best was still to come, even if it did spoil Howard's dinner.
I think we've just won the championship, Dad. Everybody immediately left the table and left me sitting there eating my Yorkshire pudding.